Welcome to the Silksong Wanderer Crest Deep Dive. In this series, we'll be analysing every crest and uncovering all the numbers from DPS and range to knockback and recoil, and every bit of info you could ever want to know in between. And with that said, let's jump straight in. The Wanderer Crest leans into fast, precise offense. It hits hard with higher attack speed and DPS, but its smaller hitbox makes it a bit less forgiving. It also has an easy, familiar pogo that works great in both combat and platforming, especially for anyone coming from the original Hollow Knight game. Its ability to deal critical damage adds some nice burst potential as well. Offensively, it has fewer red tool slots, but it makes up for it with the more exploration-focused options and the bonus of generating silk quickly thanks to its rapid attack speed. The Wanderer Crest can be obtained in the Chapel of the Wanderer sub-area in Bonegrave. The easiest way to access this area is by using a simple key and going through the wormways. Once you do get there, stay frosty, as the chapel is littered with traps, and also a gauntlet at the very end. All the numbers for the stats we're analysing are going to be based on having a fully upgraded needle, and will be shown as 3 different data points: the raw value, the value as a percentage compared to the Hunter's Crest, and finally, how that stat ranks among every other crest. The Wanderer Crest passive gives you a 2% chance to deal triple damage so long as you have 9 or more silk available. The HUD will change to let you know when this buff is active. When a crit does trigger, there will be a bright flash and sound. The attack will also cause 0.18 seconds of hit pause. That is when everything in the game pauses for added effect, and normally only happens when you take damage. Now, the crazy thing about the crit multiplier, unlike how most buffs stack, that is only multiplying the base damage and not interacting with each other, is this damage multiplier just straight up triples the entire number, buffs and all. Flint Slate giving you a 50% damage boost? Well, now it's 150%. Barbed Bracelet boosting you by 25%? Well, a crit's gonna make it 75% instead. This is by far the most powerful attack in the game, but it's balanced due to how unreliable and relatively low chance there is to trigger it. This was the biggest surprise to me when collecting the data, the fact that the Wanderer Crest at 196.5 pixels of range was actually 5.36% more reach than the Hunter's Crest. Sure, it's still the second shortest range crest in the game, but I think on our first playthrough, we were all definitely sure it would take last place. As for the area of its hitbox, that's where the true story is told. Wanderer Crest ranked dead last with an area of 16,518 pixels, which is 43% less than the Hunter Crest. Only the Architect Crest keeps it company this far back from the pack, as after these two stragglers, there is a difference of 11,000 pixels to the smallest area after that. Swing time, to no one's surprise, is going to be an easy number 1 spot for the Wanderer, with a lightning fast 0.3 second turnaround time between swings. Hit delay is also tied with the Hunter Crest with 0 seconds. Another stat I considered a bit of an upset was the hitbox linger time. Going off game feel alone, I was almost certain the rapid attacks of the Wanderer Crest would have been by far the shortest linger time. It feels like you blink and the attack's already over. But the numbers don't lie, and it actually has the 4th longest hitbox linger of all crests at 0.117 seconds, beating the Hunter Crest by just over 20%. Moving on, and yet another strength we have is the attack speed with a pretty wild 3.33 attacks per second, assuming perfect inputs. To no one's surprise, this is without a doubt taking the number 1 spot, being 36.67% faster than the Hunter Crest. What will probably surprise you though, is it only got first place by a rather small amount, but I won't spoil which crest nearly dethroned it. Due to the combination of the decent hitbox linger, lack of hit delay, and fast attack speed, this makes the Wanderer Crest uniquely suited to parrying. As you can see here from Spoonsy, this can make some crazy feats possible, allowing you to parry some pretty crazy attacks and counter as long as you have the reflexes to pull it off. Since almost every crest deals the same base damage, attack speed is almost always going to be directly proportional to DPS. So with exactly 70 DPS, it gets the number 1 spot easy, right? Well, actually, no. Let me explain. If we ignore every other crest's passive and abilities, yeah, it's gonna be number 1 in DPS with straight out needle attacks. However, it does get beaten by Hunter's Crest with fully stacked passives. I didn't count that as a separate crest in the rankings. The Beast Crest, however, in its Fury state, has such different statistics that I had to count it as an 8th crest in most categories. A bit controversial perhaps, but I'll explain why when we cover it in the next episode. Getting back to the Wanderer Crest, even accounting for the super powerful crit passive, it only gets it to 72.6 DPS, 2.8 DPS more than if we ignored crits. And that is assuming you always have 9 or more silk in the tank. 2% chance means you'll get 1 crit over 50 hits. A crit deals the damage of 3 hits, so it's like comparing doing 50 hits versus 52 hits over the same period of time. Not a huge impact in the long term, just great in the moment. If we manage to get insanely lucky and crit on every attack, say 16 times in a row, enough to kill Zengo, our DPS would skyrocket to 210 damage per second, excluding hit pause. The chances of this happening, however, is such an insane number I had to Google how to say it. That is a 1 in 1.5 octillion chance. And that number on screen looks like this. To give context, that is around double the amount of atoms in an average human body. That means if I sat here attacking non-stop, never sleeping, never eating, I'd be here for around 14 quintillion years before it happened. That's almost enough time for at least 2 more Hollow Knight games to come out, but I digress. Instead of doing that, let's take a look at the knockback value instead. The Wanderer Crest has exactly the same knockback and recoil profile as the Hunter Crest. 86 pixels were measured for knockback and the standard 40 pixels of recoil. Due to the high rate of attack, however, this can become a lot more of an issue and hinder your ability to stay in range to deal damage, making the weighted belt especially helpful for this crest. The upswing for the Wanderer Crest is quite thin and ranks dead last in the range department. Although only by a tiny margin when compared with the Hunter Crest, it's definitely the hardest upswing to use of any crest. The downswing range, on the other hand, on paper is even worse for range, having a pitiful 2-digit range of 69. In reality though, it's actually super nice to use and it's incredibly responsive due to the Wanderer's Crest's lack of any hit delay. The good news is it has a hitbox that is a decent shape, and while it still ranks at only number 6 overall for hitbox area, it's a good example that sometimes the numbers don't always tell the whole story. Moving on to the sprint attack, and it's one of the tougher ones to land. This one doesn't have any wind up or change of speed and essentially just feels like you're swinging your needle mid-sprint. This ranks dead last, having a range of 445, which includes the distance traveled during the animation. This sprint attack is one of the few that has a unique follow-up move, only accessible when landing the first part, causing Hornet to transition into a rapid follow-up diagonal attack, similar to but not quite the same as the Hunter Crest Pogo attack. The Wanderer Needle Strike deals a total of 60 damage over 5 hits, each hit dealing 12 damage. These can all individually crit, however since the base damage is only 12 compared to a normal hit being 21, it's going to be less impactful than if you critted with a normal hit. And as we already covered, critting more than once in a short period of time is incredibly rare. Even getting 2 crits over the 5 hits only has a 0.37 chance of happening. Regardless, 60 is still enough to get it the 4th overall damage spot out of all the needle strikes. And as for the range, that's going to be right in the middle at 321 pixels, taking position number 4. The Wanderer Crest bind is the stock standard bind with the usual 1.42 second duration, and healing 3 masks. Now let's take a look at the slot layout. The Wanderer Crest has a total of 7 slots, the highest amount you can get in game, which is a position it shares with 3 other crests. This is made up of 1 skill slot, 1 red slot, 2 blue slots, and 3 yellow slots. Having only 1 red slot gives you a lot less flexibility for the red tools and pushes this crest more into a pure needle build. Having 2 blue crests plus the Vesti crest means you'll likely have no issues fitting on any blue tools you may want. And finally, having the highest yellow tool capacity in the game makes this crest super convenient for farming and just general exploration. The Wanderer Crest has a unique interaction with the Magnetite dice. This will increase your crit chance by 0.2%, giving a total of 2.2% crit chance. And while this is a pretty cool interaction, this is essentially a placebo, as on average you'd only get 1 extra crit every 500 hits of the needle. Stay tuned for the next episode where we'll be doing a deep dive on the Beast Crest. And if you want to support the creation of more content like this, consider hitting the join button to become a member. Otherwise, simply liking, commenting, and hitting the hype button will all help greatly with the algorithm. And if you're still here, check out this video where I tested every skill, tool, and needle strike to figure out which has the highest burst damage potential. Or this other video where we compared nail and spells to see which builds had the most DPS in Hollow Knight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.